I'm Dr. Peter Walford. Welcome to my dental bus on Hornby Island. We're about 110 miles away from Vancouver, British Columbia, and I've had this bus going for 35 years.
This video is sponsored by Policygenius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. Head to policygenius.com/FLORB to get started right now.
I worked in a mobile clinic that the province put together early in the 70s to go out to outlying towns, that didn't have dental services. I was over in a small practice line in Cumberland, which is not too far from here. And all my fun patients weren't from Cumberland. They were from the Gulf Islands, from Denman and Hornby. Everybody getting in their cars individually and driving to Courtenay and back, it's at least 50-mile round trip from Hornby and at least 40 from Denman. Whereas if I just drive the bus, it's one short trip. That was the reason for it being mobile and for being, to fit this niche. One of my passions is sailing. So by the time I got to the dental bus, I'd already built 3.5 boats. I'd done motorhome conversions, just tear out the interior, make a new interior. Always working with people who had a specific expertise. There's a lot of really fine woodworkers on this island, so I'd go up to the shop and borrow their planer, and they'd say, "Oh, watch, now you notice how the grain is kind of fuzzing up. Change the plank end for end." And so in an afternoon, you can learn a lot about how to use the planer. I'd come home after work and do an hour or two sometimes, and then go for a run and shower and have dinner and think about other things, and then the weekends. So it was 4 years. About 4,000 hours. I think I totaled it all up with the bus, upgrades to the bus, and the new dental gear. It was just a hair over 60,000. So this is the dental bus, 1974 Bluebird. This whole bus cost $2,000. I mean, buses have almost no market value. It's got a huge V8 motor in it, running on propane, and I have a certain amount of idealism. Propane is methane. You can make that from biogas. I thought, well, that should be the gas of the future. It didn't happen. It's a twilight fuel. It's just about phased out. This is a bicycle rack. When I go to Denman, I take 2 bicycles with me, and then I ride a bike home. If you make your fitness part of how you normally go about things, you inevitably will be in better shape. You can't sort of say, "Oh, I don't feel like it today," because then the next day you'll feel even less like it. And pretty soon you got 10 pounds on you. Came standard with just these 2 bays, like for carrying sports gear for the students, whatever. I needed to have a generator. If the power goes out, I can still finish up the procedures I'm doing. Cut the whole opening and then use the piece that was cut out to be the door. It was a lot of work for a very small gain because it hardly ever runs. The inputs, this is the main cord. It's a 220 40 amp. Normally had a different telephone line, the kind of thing they used to use for marine applications, but just got a house line right now and we'll have to change it up every couple of years. Fresh water comes in here. It's like a garden connection. Disconnect and you're ready to go. This is fire hose. Just disconnect that, throw the cap on. I made a special effort to make sure that didn't leak. You'd be on the ferry and you'd be dripping gray water. At one point, the senior captain came over and he said, "If you don't fix that, I'm going to deny you passage." So we got that right. Suction is probably the hardest thing to create in a mobile clinic. I still need a vacuum to operate, just aspirate saliva and so on. The machinery for the suction is over on the other side, comes under the bus and hooks in here. If I should happen to have a failure, that goes in, and that gives me a second chance. It's a redundant system. And this is just the compressed air system. We've got some relays and different things to make it all happen. It's pretty backyard, but it's been running for 16 years without any trouble. This is just a great big battery, a D8 battery they call it, and it's not that expensive. I think it's $350. You can spend $250 on a battery that's a quarter the size and lasts half as long. The standard school bus steps are designed for children's feet, so they're about an 8-inch step, and it's too small for adults. We'd cut away the original stairway, and then we built this whole assembly out of aluminum to give us a 12-foot step. And it wouldn't work anymore with the folding door. We took the same bifolding door and I just joined it so it didn't fold anymore. And then they gave me enough space to get a proper foot plant. And then my dad, who at that point was about 88, helped me design where to put the handholds. I've got something to hang on to at every step of the way because a lot of my patients are seniors and they're not that good on their feet. So anyway, it looks like a grab handle with no purpose, but actually it's a closet. And this closet here, I had a really good carpenter help me make the lead-filled doors. I said, how about a piano hinge? He said, no, I wouldn't recommend that. I thought, if he's right, I'll have to cut the door down in smaller pieces. But he wasn't right. All these sheets of plywood, and I picked this one because I liked the figure on it. It was the best piece, you know, like a Rorschach ink blot, right? This is our clothes closet, so in the winter, we come in, and we got our damp clothing. All the wet clothing goes in here, and all the clothing gets dried. These cushions were salvaged from a boat that was sunk, but the cushions never got wet, so I repurposed them. This used to be a beautiful teak roll-top desk. My dental assistant found it at a garage sale, and I wanted to use it intact, but I couldn't because it had to be on a bevel. So we took some of the beautiful molding and turned it into her receptionist area. Seats were from a theater. They were from the Cumberland Ilo Theater. So they date back to the early 50s, I guess. All these beautiful woods are all from Hornby Island. This is the yew tree that's about 400 years old, and I was told when I got the piece, never put that through a planer, it will kill your blade. And so I never did. I put it through with a sander. Here's some beautiful stained glass work. We had a lot of different artists commissioned just for the bus. Pretty much a standard receptionist area. These are used cabinets that I got from an office supply place that's selling secondhand stuff. And I did all this carpentry myself. Mainly what you see is yellow cedar trim, birch plywood, finished both sides. And we kept all the windows on the bus because it makes a nice bright space. I've been in buses where they took the side out and it gets too small, it confines the space. All the cabinetry here is actually pretty standard dental cabinetry. I ran into a dentist who was advertising, use dental equipment to a good home. We had to take the faces off and make them, you know, unify with the aesthetics that we were following here. But this cabinetry must be 45 years old in itself. The sinks are probably that same age. The taps, we just rebuilt them with the local plumber's help, and they're still going fine. I just put this x-ray in. It's typical $5,000 x-ray. Takes beautiful films. I can be digital, I can be film. I use film right now because the sensors are so delicate and so expensive. If you break one, it's $10,000. So it's out of my scale here. There's water channels in the floor. In the cool weather, you can get quite cold, but if your feet are warm, you're completely comfortable. Basically, a little 5-gallon water tank and a little pump and the thermostat that runs on the wall like a typical thermostat. When the thermostat says, give us heat, it turns the pump on. And when it's turned low, the pump doesn't go on. The boiler is still there. To make it safe for everybody, there's 4 layers of drywall in between the wooden faces here. And then the doors have a lead sheet in behind them. So they're x-ray proof. And we took foil, that is the backing for standard x-ray, and they're all contact cemented in behind the trim. So the whole thing is completely tight. This is back when they used to make chairs to last. And usually what would happen is the fabric of the chair would rip. The first chair that did that, I covered it with this soft fabric, and people loved the comfort of it. It's like in the arms of a big teddy bear. And I think that helps reduce the anxiety for patients. We stopped being able to use switches on the side of the chair to operate it for infection control reasons. So I took those same switches and moved them into a foot control. I put a central vacuum cleaner in just to help keep the bus clean. In the early days, you generate a lot of mercury vapor. So we took a T off the line, and it's there for the patient to hold when we're removing a mercury alloy. And I can trim my dentures and all that waste. It doesn't follow my pant leg and doesn't become part of the space in the dental office. So all these buttons on the roof are held in place with a magnet, and that's a little tiny thing will hold a button up just fine. So I have probably almost 3,000 buttons. So there's some in every section of the bus. Typically, any of the dental practice I've been in, you dry your hands on paper towel and you throw them away. We had a linen contractor in the valley. It's no longer in business. And I said, I want to use these kind of continuous roll things. So this is a huge reduction in my solid waste disposal. This is the disinfection area. When we travel, we have to make sure that things don't go flying. So part of what you have to do is you need to have a little catch so that it doesn't go flying when you're traveling. And it's not totally obvious, but we can basically, inside of 5 minutes, drive away without losing anything. All this stuff here, when we drive, they'll stay there. These will fall over. So we'll put them in there. So now we're ready for our trip. This is the hygiene area. Same old chair, same thing with the switches. Extra vacuum here for when we're doing aerosols in the hygiene, spraying water and whatnot. Mostly we're dealing with an 8-foot ceiling. Well, this is a 6-foot ceiling. And all the instructions on how to install an x-ray begin with this whole mount being 2 feet higher. So then you have this lower thing and it's confined in the swinging room. So then we had to learn how to take x-rays and still get the correct angles. And that took a little doing. But you can learn it in a few days if you're a trained assistant. But every time I have someone new in, or let's say temporary help or something, it's we have to kind of coach people. I particularly like this little dock. For traveling, you need to have everything fastened. The last thing I did was really sculptural. And it just comes in here like this, just so, and snaps in place. But by this time, I was getting good at the artistry of the carpentry and everything. So I was really into it. I was, steaming all of my curves. And being a boat builder, I don't really like sharp edges intuitively. And if you're in a seaway, a sharp edge represents something that's going to hurt you if you bang into it. So all these edges are rounded, but it also gives an aesthetic to the space, which is, I think, more soothing. The darn thing is, when I finished this whole layout, I realized that having the chair on the diagonal means you only need a linear 5 foot to get your chair in. I could have put 3 chairs in if I'd thought of that earlier. I'm hoping one day that somebody will ask me for design help and I can do my 3 chair on the diagonal thing. It's been a great career working on this bus, but at this point, in my mid-70s, I'm looking for a buyer to take over. So hopefully this will appeal to somebody who's got energy and vision and wants to be of service in a fun community. And it's going for a song. When I was 50, I thought, I've made a bad mistake here, All my confreres have new cars. I've got a 20-year-old van that's rusty. And I'm an oddity. Against that standard, I felt kind of inadequate. And through what I learned from doing this bus and taking on the challenge of it and who I became as a result, this made me who I am, made me a better dentist by far. When I get stuck with a complex problem in dentistry, I know if you ask the right questions, it will open up. We're all complex individuals, and we come into the realm with a family line and past traumas to work out that have been embedded in our personal upbringing. And eventually you have to come to terms with as many of those things that hold you back. But you can't learn much if you're in the basement playing video games. You have to interact with life. That would be my message to anybody who's just working things out. It's like, okay, just take something on that you care about. You have to know what you want to do, but you don't have to know how to do it. You don't have to have the skills and materials or anything. To desire is enough. Don't be afraid. If fear holds you back. I ride motorcycles, that's risky. I sail high performance boats, that's risky. I do dentistry, that's risky. I do these risky things because I like adventure, I like the trial, I like to push an edge. But I wouldn't take it on if I didn't have the skills. But if you don't take it on, you don't get the skills. So you're caught in that.
There's no better time than now to apply for life insurance, because it's not just temperatures that are rising. Life insurance rates can go up every year that you wait to buy. Policygenius makes it easy to compare quotes from over a dozen top insurers all in one place. You can save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policygenius. You can save $1,300 or more per year on life insurance using Policygenius to compare policies. The licensed experts at Policygenius work for you, not the insurance company, so you can trust them to help you navigate every step of the shopping and buying process. And it's that kind of service that has earned Policygenius thousands of 5-star reviews across Trustpilot and Google. And eligible applicants can get covered in as little as a week thanks to an award-winning policy option that swaps the standard medical exam requirement for a simple phone call. And that exclusive policy was recently rated #1 by Forbes. So head over to policygenius.com/FLORB and get started right now. Thank you for watching and have a great week.